That's joining us.
No, there you go.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks to everyone who's joining us in person and online. We're glad that you're here. I'd like to call to order the regular monthly business meeting for June 6, 2025 for the Island Transit Board of Directors. Roll call? Yes, roll call. Danny, I see you.
Yes, I'm here.
Jill Johnson and our cute shoes are here. Thank you. Craig's here.
Present.
Melanie Bacon will be joining us shortly. She's in transit. Janet St. Clair and James P. Merrow.
Present.
All present. We have a quorum and then some. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the agenda? Are there any updates, changes, questions, comments, emotional outbursts?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
So admittedly, this is a nit. In the consent agenda, it says the June 2025 vouchers, and actually, I think we're approving the April and May, or at least vouchers that are solely in April and May. So to be accurate, I would think we'd want to say that rather than June vouchers.
Okay.
Although we are approving those vouchers in June, so maybe that's the thinking.
But the packet says May.
Yeah.
Packet in the back, that's
Okay.
reference the May vouchers.
Okay. So for the regular agenda, do we have any changes, questions, or comments? Can I get a motion to approve just the agenda and we'll move to consent agenda?
Second that.
Great. We have a motion and a second to accept the agenda as submitted. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda, questions, comments, feedback.
You approve the consent agenda. Nice.
Then you're good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, great language.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Welcome, Commissioner Bacon. We're glad you're here. Now is the time set aside for public input and comments. For members of the public to speak to the board about subjects of concern or interest or items not already set aside for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Public comments may be ended or modified if the comments become disruptive or are not germane to the business at hand. Input requiring lengthier comments is best submitted in writing. Do we have anyone from the public? No one in the room? Anyone online? No, ma'am. Oh, okay, then we will close the public input and comment section and move to business item number 1, memorandum of understanding with Oak Harbor Police Department. Hand it over to our executive director, whose birthday it is today.
No pressure. Thank you. Okay, so business item number 1, an MOU with the Oak Harbor Police Department. In May, I met with Chief Slowick to discuss a potential partnership between Oak Harbor Police and Island Transit. The MOU presented to you today outlines the collaborative interests and efforts between the agencies. These include scenario-based training for our operators, a Coopville-based building and safety plan review and update of Island Transit's trespass process, and a transit stopwatch check for high priority shelters and stations in Oak Harbor, including a monthly dashboard report on activity. Island Transit, in return, will provide a reimbursement for the city's police patrol e-bike training that will take place in July of 2025. Chief Slowick and I believe that this is a great step in building a solid collaboration between the two agencies. I am asking the board today to approve the MOU and a $15,000 reimbursement. This MOU does go through the end of December 2026, and the training that the police department will provide will begin in January of 26, so that we have plenty of time to work with our trainers and the police department on developing their curriculum. Questions?
Well, why are we paying for their e-bike training?
Well, they approached in looking for what they were calling was a sponsorship. And so in return, I also asked for some amped up patrols, additional training to see what kind of partnership we could build.
Uh-huh. So they have e-bikes, you have e-bikes. It's part of their police department. And we're paying a municipal police department on how to use equipment that they have as part of their normal book of business.
My understanding is that the e-bikes are new. Are they new, James?
My understanding too.
And that it's a full 2-day training because e-bikes are different from the regular bicycle.
Did they buy the e-bikes because of Island Transit? Or they bought? No.
No, this is part of their patrol. Do you want to expand on this at all, James?
I would just state that because of the conditions of around the Spin Cafe and as well as downtown area, and of course, I was engaged in the conversation with Chief Slowick as well, that in order to get the qualifications for the officers to do this extra patrols and so forth with regard to our more difficult bus stops and locations, that they would need more officers, and then, you know, the officers that they do have that are additional would need training for the bikes to be certified. And so I generally favor, because I have to deal with Spin Cafe and locations there.
Well, Spin Cafe is an Island Transit.
I'm just describing to you that Iowa Transit does go by there.
Yeah, so do I. Should I get a bill at my house?
I'm not addressing that matter, but I would just state that I'm mindful of the fact that our businesses are pressed because of the presence of homeless, druggies, and criminal elements and so forth. And I support the matter of amping up enforcement as best we can, and this would certainly do that.
I guess where I'm struggling is that's fine. But that law enforcement is a municipal responsibility. And so I'm trying to understand how it becomes this agency's responsibility to pay for a municipal's responsibility. The Spin Cafe is located in the largest city in Island County. It also has people who go there who aren't druggies, and a lot of the people who are on the street are not allowed to go to Spin Cafe. They were there before Spin Cafe was even there. I drive by it,
Right.
so they used to hang out there all the time. Patrol is not a transit responsibility. Like, I would understand if there was an MOU that says we have law enforcement on the buses, or that we have asked for law enforcement to patrol the transit stop and put staff there. That was directly correlated with the work of transit. I'm not understanding the e-bike connection with transit. If this is a patrol activity that they're choosing to do, which it sounds like, if this wasn't about this, if they need to do additional patrols in the city, okay. But we're also respectfully talking about a non-budget constrained city, the largest revenue, where our small communities are asking us to do this. I don't understand how this belongs to this board at all. I'm not trying to be difficult, but if it was any other city, I'd ask the same questions. They want to do something in their town and they're asking us to pay for it. Why?
So can I answer the question? And I take your point, Commissioner Johnson. So what ostensible benefit is there to Island to use it? Presumably, we're seeing emphasis patrols
Right.
at
Well,
our bus stops. Is that
just to kind of dial it back to when I was first approached about this. When I met with Chief Slowick, there were a number of items they had on the table that they were looking for support for. I was understanding that, at times, different organizations will go out and ask for sponsorships. So when they presented the idea to me, they wanted financial support for an e-bike training that they already have that's existing. So this training was supposed to be scheduled for July. It's a required training for their officers. In turn, I asked for additional patrols at some of our more high priority shelters where we're having some concerns and at Harbor Station. So when he approached me with this idea, I asked for things in addition to not only the amped up patrols, but also what could the city of Oak Harbor Police Department provide to our transit operators that would enhance safe de-escalation training on buses and be part of our training for our operators. So, you know, then that kind of dove into them coming and doing an assessment of our Coopville base here and looking at where we could make safety improvements, also assist us with the trespass policy that we have when we have riders on the bus that are removed for certain periods of time. So I, you know, wanted to do something in exchange. I wasn't willing to just, you know, sponsor the e-bike training, but to actually have a partnership where they could improve some things here at Island Transit in exchange for that. So,
We also wrote in there that they have to give a monthly report too on this. We have some
Correct.
specific transit stops we want them to watch
and then they would provide a monthly dashboard on the incidents that were there. I don't know if that answers your question, Commissioner Johnson, but I want to say, how.
May I speak to it with your approval? Okay, yeah, with regard to, the law enforcement piece, I'm completely mindful of the, destructive effects that homeless people that are out of control for one reason or another. I'm speaking of ones that are out of control, that is, you know, the ones that are screaming and are on drugs and affecting the businesses in that area of downtown, or the area we're speaking of. And the idea of getting more patrol there, because without proper law enforcement suppression of it, it gets worse and worse. All I have to do is look at on the mainland, small communities that once were you know, safe. In fact, I've had multiple people say, when I was a kid, I used to just walk down these various areas. And I said, and they would say, and I've heard this multiple times, it's not just anecdotal, but it's over and over again from different groups. They're saying, I would never have my kids walk down there. And I don't walk down there. And businesses are relocating, like, what was it, Northwest Bookkeeping? They've relocated. And I'm just mindful of the destructive effect of the presence of drug addicts and people that are mentally ill, whether they cause it themselves. And some I know for a fact, because I did 15 years in law enforcement, some of them damage themselves, so they get on government subsidies, and then they literally use that money to support their drug habit. So I'm not a heartless person, but I'm a optimistic realist. And so I'm eager to have additional patrols there. And this was not originally anything that was budgeted for the police department, but I think it would benefit Island Transit, because I've had also many people say, I will not get on those buses because I know the kinds of people that are on them. I mean, I've heard this over and over again. And so as far as ridership, now it's not true throughout the county. I'm just saying the buses that go to far distant places and other it's not an issue. That's all I've got. So I have a little intensity here because I've seen the destruction of communities because of the kind of populations that start moving in and getting public services, and then it becomes just a downward spiral.
I'm gonna move to Janet and then Craig.
Okay, my bad. All right.
And I have
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Bacon, and then I have a follow-up question for Commissioner Johnson.
So I appreciate your concern. I will
Join the
say
meeting.
30 years of overseeing mental health programs across Washington State, that people with mental illness are more likely, statistically, the data will tell you, to be a victim of crime than to be victimizers. So I just want to reference a little bit of the bias I'm hearing in your voice. I understand that perception drives reality among the public, but I can't stay quiet and allow us to demonize a population that is vulnerable and in need of services. The reason I think this is a good thing, and it references the things that got added into their training that directly has an access to Island Transit, has to do with my role here around our rider safety, as you noted, and our employee safety. And so by having increased patrols and increased training on the nexus between Island Transit down here in section C of the MOU, that is a way in which we can keep our riders safe and keep our drivers safe. So that's my perspective on this.
You, Commissioner. So I do have a similar concern and when you refer to homeless people, there are many homeless people that are not that are not druggies or they're simply in a bad place. And so I think we just need to say members of the community that are disruptive on our transit buses, not whether they're homeless or they, have they live in their cars or they're, have a broken down vehicle, it does not matter. What we're looking for is safety on our buses and being as welcoming as we can to all members of the community to the extent that they, follow our guidelines.
Yes, sir.
Please don't say homeless druggies. That's offensive.
Commissioner Bacon.
I think that if this memorandum of understanding will result in more riders, safer rides, the drivers feeling safer, then that's worth it to us. That's what we want. And so I appreciate that this MOU is trying to find some way to achieve that. I'm just wondering if there's any kind of metrics that we can work in here. I appreciate that we have this monthly watch check update is a metric. I wonder if there's any other kinds of metrics like an increase in ridership because people feel safer riding the buses or some survey of drivers by the end of 2026 or something to see if drivers are feeling safer as a result of the trainings they received or their sense that the police are paying more attention to the buses and the safety on the buses. I would be interested.
I love the driver survey idea. I think that would be a great measurement tool to see what kind of difference it makes. The value of what I believe the police are putting forth in the additional training, the trespass, the assessment base, those things, I think, are well worth the $15,000 investment. I'd be happy to ask for that.
I wanted to come back. I think the budget piece of that is probably still top of mind for you, so I wanted to get some sort of resolution before we move forward. For the rest of the group, is okay. Is it that they have this budgeted? Is that your concern, or is that it's an unrealistic ask? Because it's a sponsorship, so I guess that's where this is different.
I mean, it's Island Transit sponsoring a municipal law enforcement organization, a function of the city of Oak Harbor. It is literally like, we're gonna give $15,000 to the county for the sheriff's department to do its job. I feel, this is my own opinion, I've already made up my mind on how I'm voting, so I'm not trying to persuade other people, but I feel like this conversation about level of service should be a conversation that comes without sponsorship dollars. You say to your local law enforcement, this is what we need to operate within your city. Your responsibility to provide law enforcement meets these level of services, and we should not have to pay extra for this level of service. If we were requiring additional staffing, I would understand where we would have an MOU, but this is just about an additional level of attention and service. The city of Oak Harbor bought bikes, and then we hear, well, they don't have the budget to do the training. I would like Island Transit to sponsor Island County's body cam software because the sheriff forgot to budget for the body cam software. And we've got cameras and we have to now pay for software we didn't budget for. Would you like to sponsor that? Because when they go and check on somebody who's on a bus in the county, we'll look at that film. Should we come here and say you need to pay for functions of Island County's law enforcement? No. So I just feel like it's just a respectfully ridiculous that governments are looking for sponsorships to provide basic functions. And I'm not sure how that's not ridiculous to everybody. But it is to me, and I've made my mind up because I'm not gonna be able to wrap my head around that at all. I appreciate the creativity of the police chief. But when we break that down, it literally is, it literally is like the sheriff saying, hey, will you sponsor the jail? No, we pay taxes for the jail. You operate the jail, you operate law enforcement, and law enforcement does community patrols. And you don't find sponsors to get those patrols. That's weird to me. I just think that is. I'm just out, so it's okay. I mean, it's okay. I understand, like, I think you did a good job of saying we want these things. I think these things should have been negotiated in the normal course of a relationship with local law enforcement. I think that's their job, and I think that's what taxpayers are paying them to do, not Island Transit. If it's not safe in an area, taxpayers are paying you to keep that safe in that area. And to go to another government entity and say, we can't make our budget, can you sponsor us? Well, I could find $15,000 in Oak Harbor's budget, I can tell you who. Okay, it's just my own opinion on it, so.
Is this a reoccurring cost or is this a one-time cost? Because I see there's an end date here, then what happens after the end date?
It's a one-time cost. So, and it's based on reimbursement for the training. So they have to produce an invoice. And the MOU just goes through the end of December so that we can have 6 months to ramp up the type of training and give it to her.
And then do we have assurances on the duration of this patrolling on our behalf after?
It's supposed to be through December 26th, or excuse me, December 2026.
And we'll renegotiate again.
Yes.
Sorry,
The other senior
sorry.
members, they,
forgetting
I
to
know,
look left, I apologize.
I know my place.
I would,
It's
I
okay.
would
I know the
offer
man is
that.
gonna poke me. I
Once
missed.
they're trained and we build that relationship, I will share the expectation that we don't have to continue to pay for a level of service.
Sure.
That to have e-bikes, I understand e-bikes, they're often used in order to access quickly and efficiently other places, but whether it's Harbor Station or downtown, that we will continue to see that level of service from the city of Oak Harbor to protect the patrons of Island Transit, the people that are near there. But I can understand this partnership to launch that. But I don't expect it for an ongoing cost to this. So just to be clear, from my perspective, I support this, but I don't support an ongoing cost.
So I think I heard you say it goes through 2025.
26.
Say, okay.
So just to address the members of, all the members of the board, each one of us come from a particular background, which colors or affects our view of reality, situational awareness, that we call it in the Navy. So I understand completely that every member of the board is going to have, emphases, okay? And I think you pretty much perceive what my emphases is. And I respect Commissioner Johnson, Bacon, Commissioner St. Clair, I mean, everybody who's spoken, and Craig, Mr. Sear, but one of my goals as a decision maker on the city council is to ramp up what is necessary so we don't collapse as a town with regard to certain matters. And it's not just law enforcement, but there's other features too. So that's all I've got. But I just want to say I respect the decisions of each one of the board members here. One time, oh yes, I support Commissioner Sinclair on this one time. Yeah, it's a one time.
Other comments? Questions? Get a motion.
I move to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Oak Harbor Police Department in support of continuing collaborative interests and efforts within the jurisdiction related to the transportation community and public safety of Island County, Washington.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? So the motion is to enter into the memorandum of understanding with Oak Harbor Police Department. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Point of order, what was the bill from there?
About 4-2.
4-2.
Okay.
Sorry, I should set that up. Thank you.
Just a point of information.
Sure.
It says, move into the memorandum of understanding, I would think, but we have A there. I don't know if it matters legally speaking. Okay. For from council meeting.
All right, business item number 2, authorization to issue a solicitation for an automatic passenger count system for installation on Island Transit's fixed route system. And I will think that this is a multi-part
Yes, it is a
presentation.
multi-part. So I thought number 1 was the easy one. You're gonna love this. No, trying to add a little levity here. So, we have 3 of us today, presenting on automatic passenger counters. I'm going to give some introductory comments, and then our, Will from our maintenance division and Brad from planning are going to do their part of the presentation, and then I'll close out with my comments. So with that, I'll get started. What we're asking for today is the authorization to issue a solicitation for automatic passenger counter systems for installation on our fixed route system. This is a new project for Island Transit, not included in the 2025 budget. Since 2009, APCs, I'm going to use that acronym for short, have become a standard in public transportation agencies. The use of this tool is critical as we approach the long-range planning process. Benefits include improved service planning, enhanced operational efficiencies, and increased customer satisfaction. To be specific, improved service planning and optimization include accurate ridership data, real-time occupancy data, data-driven route optimization, and fleet utilization. The enhanced operational efficiencies include a reduced operational costs by optimizing the fleet utilization, improved scheduling, providing real-time data on passengers for more accurate scheduling, reducing wait times, and improving overall reliability. Compliance and funding. This accurate ridership data supports compliance with the Federal Transit Administration with funding requirements and also supports grant applications. Increased customer satisfaction would be seen through optimizing the fleet deployment and adjusting service levels where needed, enhanced service reliability, and real-time passenger information. Currently, ridership data is gathered by manual counts and reported on a weekly ridership basis. This does not allow the agency to determine peak travel times necessary to provide service that is reliable and to assist in determining high-capacity routes. APCs are a valuable tool for public transportation operators, providing accurate ridership data and enabling a more efficient and cost-effective service delivery. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our. That's all right, we can hear it again.
So what are APCs? APCs are an advanced sensor-based system that provides automated data on our passenger count, which is used for various purposes while ridership analysts, route planning, and funding applications. Automated passenger information systems work to enhance operation efficiency. Next slide, please. How do they work? APCs work when passengers enter or exit the bus. There are sensors over each passenger door tracking boarding and exiting of the bus. The data is sent to the CPU, which it's real small to see in there, but it kind of gives you a graph of how it works. Sent to the APCU, to the CPU, and then per Wi-Fi or cellular sent to a data center. So it doesn't deal with the operator having to touch things, anything. The only thing the operator has to do with this is he has to log into it, and then that's it. From then on, it's all computer-based.
So they log in at the beginning of shift and then out at the
Log
end of
out
shift.
at the end of their shift, so. that's a little bit to Brad from here.
Right, next slide, please. So, there's a variety of data that you can get out of, APC kind of systems now. The biggest one for us is ridership. That is what we need for our data analysis, for our decision-making processes. And it gives us more, as Melinda said, more than just total boardings, because everything is geolocated and also timed by when people come on and off. It allows us to go in and break down ridership by day, by type of day, a Saturday versus a Sunday. That is something that has come up in board meetings in the past, is our Sunday service, relatively new. Has it been a worthwhile investment? So this is the system that allows us to analyze that. We can also look at our span of service. Having service later in the day or earlier in the day often are things that the public brings forward to us. So we can break down a route and say, okay, well, what is the ridership for the one as it goes down to the commuters? You know, connecting to the ferries. What is that ridership in those hours? How are we doing? And look and see what percentage of the one's ridership is coming and occurring at these locations at that time. We also, as a transit agency, have to make regular reports to the National Transit Database. So the APC systems, most of them, anyone that we select would have pre-formatted reports that would allow us to more easily meet that requirement that happens for all of us. Other things that come into play when we look at resource allocation is those revenue miles and hours. And those are not the biggest things that the board may notice or that the public may notice when it comes to public comments. But for resource allocation, for determining where we want to put our vehicles, the wear and tear that occurs on our vehicles. So it helps us plan out, you know, how much are we wearing down our vehicles? Can we stretch our buses to a 15-year useful life benchmark? Or do we need to scale back to the FTA 12-year useful life benchmark? These are the sort of things that helps us look at this and analyze, because we can make predictions based on better information. Next slide, please. This is an example of the kind of charts that you can get out of an APC system. So in this particular case, you've got each different color there is routes, and those are by month. And so it's showing what each route is contributing to the system by month. So you can see if in the seasonal months, tourism, is that increasing our routes? Is that maybe increasing on weekends? You can also make similar charts like this for a specific route, and each hour of the day is color coded. And so then you can very easily go in and look and say, okay, on weekdays, we see that this from 7 to 8 p.m. or 7 to 8 a.m. when schools are going into session in Oak Harbor, we're seeing the Route 9 or the Route 2 really has a ramp up. So this is probably an indication that we are getting students on the bus. Because these are the things, these are the services that we're providing at that time.
And they're
So-
getting off at the school.
Yes.
I had a student that didn't always do that.
Yeah. And luckily, this will also tell us where people are getting off. So that's one of the blind spots we have now. As you go through and you look at ridership by stop, there are some stops that have nothing. And so can we go in and get rid of those stops? That's often a question. Can agencies consolidate stops? But that may be where people are getting off. So they're getting on the other side of the street, and that stop looks used. But the stop on the other side of the street is being used, but it doesn't have any ridership attached to it, the way we track data now. So this is how this system helps us out and helps us do service planning and decision-making by filling out the full picture for us. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Melinda.
Excellent job, both of you. Thank you. Sorry, I stole your thunder there.
It's okay.
All right.
I just had to improvise.
So in closing, this is a critical investment for Island Transit and its long-range planning process. This dovetails into what we're currently launching in the long-range plan and will really help to provide that data along with the outreach to the community about what service is needed out there. We will plan to return to the board with a budget amendment in July. Costs for a similar size agency in the past may run up to a $1 million mark to install all of this equipment. Annual service fees for the data management run about $50,000 per year and support the APC data. Today, we're asking to pursue an RFP process that will define that cost and allow negotiating power. It is possible that through the savings we have accomplished on all the other projects that I've brought to you this year, that where we have come in under budget, that we may be able to reallocate existing funds to this project. Please keep in mind that in the long run, service planning will be more purposeful. Fleet optimization will reduce operating costs. And we will be able to optimize preventive maintenance compliance on our fixed route vehicles. In closing, we've developed a draft scope of work and we are requesting the board approve the agency to procure the services of civic initiatives to finalize that scope of work and issue a request for proposal.
I went left first.
With the chair's indulgence, I have a comment and I have about 4 or 5 questions.
Oh, boy.
Bring it
Okay.
up.
So my comment is, I appreciate data. Anyone who knows me knows how much I appreciate data. Data is one source of information on what decisions get made. It is also not always our why. And I want to just point out that there are places where we may have lower ridership, where this board has historically or in the past made decisions to increase a route to meet a community need. But we could talk about our access points to the base. We could talk about extension of service to South Camino. That's a problematic piece, and we can talk about how we've increased service for access and equity in different ways. So I don't want us to get, for someone who loves data, please board, don't get so drawn into doing only data-driven decisions that we forget our why for some of what we do. So that's my editorial comment. What's the funding source?
It would be local funds.
Local funds, okay. You talked about, you answered the ongoing cost. What's the timeline of the RFQ?
I believe it's an RFP, but
RFP, sorry.
as far as issuing it,
Mhm.
what is, we
We
didn't
would
talk to
prob-
Civic about this, as that was on the long range plan. So we have not talked to them about it yet. Typically, it's about a 3-month process.
Okay, it's maybe a Matt question. Does the board normally approve solicitations or do we just approve the contracts?
Normally you would approve the contract. I think the intent of having this as an agenda item is it's unbudgeted. Normally the RFP process would go through, the procurement of things that were in the budget. I think this is why this is.
And when do we begin our budget session again?
Yesterday.
I just, because that piece of it's unbudgeted, but we have probably a 3 to 5 month process that's gonna unfold before us. That will enter into the budget timing. So I don't know that we can go forward with the RFQ. I don't have any problem with it. You already know I have a big problem with the price tag on this. We talked about that.
Sure.
So, but if you wanna see what's out there, it'll enter into our budget process. I'm not willing to this is just my own opinion. I'm not willing to do an out of cycle budget amendment in July when we're not even gonna close out the RFP process until we're in budget. And so we can fold this into our ongoing budget process depending on what the board decides. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Question for you. I apologize to the board for a lot of questions, but I'm thinking a lot about this.
There's no need for.
Well, why we're here.
It's just, this is, I can perseverate. What other options? What do we use now to track ridership that doesn't cost us $1 million and 50K ongoing?
So right now, we're doing manual counts with the drivers. So as somebody gets on, we are tracking and we would still continue that. Because we have to track whether somebody's a regular rider or if they're youth. We also track wheelchair boarding. And the reason for that is some of our state funding comes with the requirement that we track ridership. Several years ago,
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, so we have to report that. And now these systems, they're usually tracking a heat signature. So they know somebody has gone on and off, but they don't know if they're an adult or a youth. So we would continue that system right now.
Or a service animal.
Our
Sorry.
service, and yeah,
Can you also
Um,
expand though that it, those manual counts do not, we can get weekly ridership. But they're giving a full day's worth of data, so we don't know what those peak times were the on and off, sorry. the other two.
I did read an article in the industry about the value of this, just to try to test my opposition. And they understand that, you know, there are funding sources that require us to gather certain types of data. I knew of the youth one and the potential. I just, so I did, but I remain opposed to any budget amendment in the year if, and I'm ambivalent about the RFP, but the board decided. Sorry, I didn't know, I have no apologies. You're right.
So I was curious to know about, you mentioned it's 3-month process to,
Approximately for an RFP, depending on when we can begin with civic initiatives. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I always get that confused with Civic Plus. So they are the procurement specialists that assist us with. the
so that
process.
means, what does that mean specifically? That at the end of 3 months, they'll be able to go out and start getting them? Or by the end of the 3 months, we'll have the report?
Typically, what happens is depending upon, you know, their schedule,
Sure.
right, and our schedule. We will present them with a draft scope of work. They will work with us to finalize and really fine tune. Then they will put out the solicitation. Can
Yes.
you recall some of the steps that we just discussed on the long range plan?
yeah, so they'll put it out for advertising, and then those proposals will come into them and they will review them for responsiveness. Did they report all the elements that we requested in the scope of work, and in the required, RFP? And then they'll do the sort of, you know, okay, here's the cost, here's the breakdown of the various parts and what they're charging for implementation versus parts, you know, those kind of things. And so they'll provide us with that breakdown ready. We don't have to do that internally. We just have to then evaluate the bids at that point and then turn around and select.
So are you saying that those bids will be back at the end of that or within the 3 months that we're saying?
It, you know, without getting held to an exact date,
Yes, yes, yes.
usually you have a selected vendor at the end of a 90-day period.
Okay, so what we're talking about is by the end of the summer, likely, we would be evaluating the staff.
I would say fall. I would,
So by fall, we
Right.
would get a vendor recommendation that would come back to the board for a contractual improvement. That's why we're back in our budget cycle.
it's fair.
So one of the main ways that many systems track mobility these days is through telephone games. So that's how we know that we have X number of visitors from Texas in 2025, is because we're tracking that stuff. So I just wanted to, you said this is about heat, so we're not tracking telephone games.
No, it's actually tracking, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's actually tracking the heat signature of the person coming on the vehicle. And depending on how you set this up, after so many people are on the vehicle, it could go back and it can actually look at the whole bus and track everybody that's on the bus to make sure these numbers are in real time right.
So it knows that I'm passenger X, it doesn't know who I am, because it
Nope,
doesn't
nope,
access.
Just the heat.
And they know that I get on the bus at this stop. They don't, it doesn't track that I'm the person who's getting off on this other stop, or is it that personalized?
No, it's not.
It will know that somebody got.
Somebody got.
But it's not this.
And as the
person got.
systems are becoming more and more smart, it will know due to a height of how far from the sensor, if the person is of younger age or of an older adult age, it'll do it that way. And if somebody got on the bus and goes, nope, I don't wanna do this, and got off, it'll automatically reduct that person, because it understands which way the person was moving. coming off the bid.
When you pursue federal funding for these kind of projects, or excuse me, when you're, say, a direct reporter like Everett Transit was, and a lot of their formula funding is based on the ridership. You actually use these APCs to certify the data by a statistician when you're reporting to the National Transit Database. That's how they support the amount of ridership you have on to give you money. I mean, we are not in that position here, but you know, who's to say that one day we're gonna be?
How does the equipment go on new buses? So you're buying this now for $1 million. Let's say we add 10 new buses. How do we get the 10 new pieces of equipment on there? Is that an additional cost? Is there a certain number that you get with that initial amount that you can add to it? Or every time we add a new bus, we have to pay for new installation?
If you want me to.
Well, I'm thinking, and I'm gonna hand off to you, like at Everett Transit, they would remove, just like they have fair equipment, they remove those components when they surplus that bus, and then it's put on to the new.
Right, but let's say that we need to expand our number of buses or bus routes, so we don't have old equipment to take off to put on a new bus. We've added additional buses to the fleet. Do
Expansion.
you have to, do you have to pay per unit for each one of those new buses, or this contract allows you to add so many units, or?
That's a very good point. I don't have an answer to that. Do you?
As of right now, just like any expansion buses we do, we buy new equipment for the expansion, what you're asking. We still have X number of buses, we're gonna keep that number and go forward with expansion. We buy the new equipment for the expansion of those buses. That would work that way and that way. If we were replacing buses, the equipment would come out of those buses. We would install it in the new buses.
So I
That
think
answer
it
your
would be
question?
good to include that in the RFP.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that scope of work.
And depending on the system and the vendor's relationship with Gillig, a lot of subsystems can be purchased as part of a vehicle purchase.
Hmm.
So if we did an expansion of our fixed route fleet, we might be able to buy these and get these installed by the factory. But that's, we don't know which vendor we're selecting. I don't know if they have that relationship with Gillig or not.
But I think to Commissioner Johnson's point is that, you know, what's the number that we get? Is it to cover our fleet as it stands in total? We decommissioned 10 buses and acquired 10 buses. We have it for 10 buses, but we acquired 10 new. How are those 10 new outfitted? Is it another budget line item and we have to increase our cost?
It would be
Or
rolled into the replacement of the bus at that point.
The purchase price.
The purchase price of that
But
bus.
it'd be an
That's
additional
an
cost.
additional cost.
Additional
That would
cost.
be an additional cost.
Yeah.
Just like if
But
securements and barriers, things like that.
everything we've done in the last 20 years. When we buy a new bus and we're expanding, that is how that bus is bought. We've always rolled the equipment into
Into the cost
the
of the
cost
bus.
of that bus.
And what's the lifespan of these units typically?
I do not know the answer to that.
Well, I don't wanna spend $1 million every 2 years, so I would like to know if this is a 10-year $1 million investment, if it's a 5-year, if it's, I think.
We'll make sure.
I mean, this concept I'm supportive of, and I agree with Commissioner St. Clair that by the time this plays out, it will be in the 2026 budget in terms of purchase and ongoing operating. So my other question would be about licenses, or with that 50,000 you mentioned, and I
Right.
understand that will change with inflation.
We all know.
I know, I fixate on things, and then years go by and I'm still fixated on the price that I originally paid. But how does that, if you added more buses, does your ongoing cost then increase, or you get a certain number of licenses to monitor, or it's just one system and it doesn't matter how many buses are on that system, and this is probably stuff we'll figure out in the.
We'll put that in
RFP.
the scope of work, yeah.
All right, so we would say, like, at this stage, it would be, if you're interested, you'd say yes to this, but then there would be a time where we got the RFP back and we can evaluate what we're getting for that to decide if it's financially worthwhile, if we think there's enough benefit for it. This is really to just do the exploration of what it would cost us to pursue this type of automated counting.
Yes.
Craig, and then James.
So Commissioner Johnson, I think, made the statement that I was gonna make. And I think that, we're not saying we're gonna spend $1 million in this consideration. What we're saying is, at least what I think we hope we'll do, is that we will tell, staff to go get the information we need. And then we can decide at that point if it's important enough and has enough benefit to go ahead at that point and purchase it, or to just, now we have a perfect budget number because we have the bid, and then we can do it. So I hope we'll tell staff to do this. We're not making $1 million decision right now. We're asking questions, then we can decide. I do want to comment, and I want to ask you about the impact. I mean, you worked at Everett Transit for a stretch, I think.
Yes.
And does Everett Transit have these
Yes.
counters?
And
how did they
community
make use of it?
transit.
Did it impact operations?
Absolutely. It helped them optimize routes based on ridership as well as the fleet utilization. So that if you look out in our parking lot and we only have 3 buses out there because we've got them going all over the island, right? It also impacts our ability to do preventive maintenance on those vehicles. So what it helped us do really was deplete overtime, because you were able to schedule the routes better instead of having all the overtime. And of course, remember, we did this pre-COVID when ridership was still, up there, ridership, we had drivers. We weren't in the driver shortages that we've experienced, since COVID. But community transit, I spoke with Danny about this as well. They have them, Whatcom has them, King County has them. Does Skagit have them?
Yes, they do.
About some of the like kind to us, those are all much larger systems than ours.
At least that should be the
Well,
last.
Skagit and Everett are the same as us.
Skagit, Everett, or me, okay, I think Scat being bigger.
So, I was struck by, the presentation and, we always think about boardings, but departures really are super important
Yes,
here. And I think that will really add a lot of, picture to the usage of our system. So, it's a very intriguing idea, and I'm glad you brought it to the board's attention.
Thank you.
James Pinero.
Yes, I definitely am in favor of the RFP because it doesn't commit us. I did want to make mention, just as a warning, about the contracts with people who are in the business of making money, no fault of their own, which is excellent. But anybody in business, especially with regard to services to government, they're going to have their cost plus idea of thinking. But then there's the question about obsolescence as time goes by, regular upgrade costs, maintenance costs. So all of these things, I think, in the RFP need to be addressed in advance, especially like a warranty. Do we get 1-year warranty? I mean, I'm still marveling at that one. We need to have enough coverage so that if there was issues with regard to the durability of it or some matter. And then, it just came to my mind, the measure of duplication, because the drivers are having to just, reminds me of computers, the computers are supposed to do away with paper, but now we have paper backups for all the stuff we have on the computer. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not too far off. So managing costs, if we can reduce the duplication or eliminate it as we go along, that would be great. Let's see. But I understand that you are a negotiator.
I am.
So this is excellent. So you can lean on them. All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
Will, how many providers of APC services are there roughly? Are we gonna get 10?
Providers. In the market right now, there's 3 to 4 real big providers, and then there's other people that have jumped on board in the United States. If you go outside the United States, there's a whole lot.
Thank you.
So,
I would say we can anticipate under 10.
yes, under 10, yes.
I'm just going to point out something we said earlier, that we talked about our long range plan, because there's a part of me that feels like we're putting the cart before the horse. It's typically my understanding of capital investments as we build our long range plan, and again, it's different than our TDP. But, and then we make our decisions on where we're gonna make our major investments. So I feel a little, I think part of my anxiety, as you said, that it's an aha for me of, that's how I think. I will be, I don't know what I'll be, I haven't quite made up my mind, but, I want to point out that in my reading, there's a 15% error rate in Manuel County, according to the article. Yeah, I did a whole lit review. Now I did 3 or 4 articles. But is 15% error rate, is the value proposition enough to spend what we're talking about here for a 15%?
For the National Transit Database, you have to have a less than 10% error rate, and that has to be certified by a statistician to continue getting funding.
Well, that's good to know. And I only read one article that talked about the error rate on manual systems. But that it's hard to have, for me, I'm looking for the value proposition. Yes,
Sure. And I think just to speak to the process between the long range plan and the APCs, we think the reason I'm running them currently or requesting to do so is that it's gonna take time to ramp up and get that information. We'll already be doing outreach for our long range plan in reaching the community base, not the data driven base of where services are needed. So I see both of these processes as being at least a minimum of a 1 year.
So what I hear you saying is this data will help drive the long.
Absolutely, absolutely, but it's not gonna replace what's needed in the community, because that's gonna be the biggest
I hear
part
you.
of our outreach.
Question. With regard to an automated system where you have a physical movement or heat signature going across the sensor. I mean, it surprised me that there's even a 10% error. I mean, people come and go. Do you understand what I'm saying here? How can you have, if it's an automated system which just
Well,
automatically records?
no, I think you state a very good point. So when I say in the National Transit Database, when they're using APCs, you don't have to go through the statistician process like you would if you're doing hand counts.
Okay.
Okay, so if you were doing hand counts, you would have to be within 10%. And then all of your counts would have to be certified by a statistician. They do that every 3 years. But by having APCs, you don't have to go through that certification process.
But the error is still there, the 10% with the APC?
National Transit Database always questions. Because, they talked about, and data is not perfect.
Right.
Somebody
Fair
getting off and on, or, I thought it was interesting that I saw the sensors were up at the top, because I believe at Everett Transit, they're at the bottom.
There is multiple different ways, but
Okay.
majority of them now have gone to what they call a HELA sensor, which was on one of those slides, and they sit right above the door.
Yeah, I found that interesting when I
Yeah.
saw that. So
Yeah.
I don't know all the new technology that's available.
It keeps evolving.
But I thought Melanie had a good point too, about we don't wanna evolve too much to erode privacy. So I'm comfortable with the heat sensing tracking, but I'm not super comfortable with, I got on the bus here, I got off at my boyfriend's house, I got back on the bus, I got back off at my husband's.
I thought she was gonna talk about being off.
To track all that. I do get a little nervous about government, I've gone a little crazy about government surveillance, as my colleagues know, I've gone nuts about it. But I do think that there's an element of what we need to track, which is bodies.
Yes.
But we don't need to track personalities or the actual. people.
Absolutely, true.
That'd be some interesting public
Records.
records
I'm,
requests.
I realized it was a little dramatic, but
That-
you know what I'm
That
saying.
was a big consideration with the Orca card in this.
I was just gonna say the
Huge
same,
consideration.
yeah.
See, I'm not as crazy as.
No, you're not
We
crazy.
had
No,
to
no.
keep all the data because the
You asked the
trips
right
are
question.
tracked where they got on and off.
And we're afraid of
We had to
subpoenas
secure
and
that.
divorce cases, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, oh my goodness.
No,
So when I go
that's a real thing.
from the transit station and I stop off at Nordstrom Rack in Seattle before I head home, that's probably not, that's public records?
No,
There was some specific changes to the public records law because of one.
Let's move on.
Question.
That's not germane, good point,
I'm not
Greg.
familiar with the buses, like, as far as photographs or video feed on the buses,
Mhm.
do they record people coming on and off?
We have video.
Yeah, so there'd be a correlation that could be made between the accounts and the people who are getting on and off.
Except that your videos only retain 24 hours.
3 weeks.
Oh, 3 weeks. Okay. Okay.
You
Roughly.
don't wanna lose the video.
Oh, I'm not, I'm just describing that there is a correlation between the
Yeah, I
count
hear
and a video
Move us
feed,
on.
so.
Yeah.
Sorry, y'all.
We're
Getting
going on a rabbit trail.
Yes,
Okay,
gotta get my bottle of weed killer out, we're in the weeds.
okay.
I move to authorize solicitation for an automatic passenger counter system for installation on Highland Transit fixed route system.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the solicitation for the APC through an RFP process only. Any other questions or comments? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we made it to business item number 3, Island Transit's Title 6.
Yes.
Sorry, y'all, I skipped 3rd grade, that's where they teach Roman numerals, I don't know what they are. Non-discrimination plan. And I will pass that over to Melinda.
Thank you. This one's super easy. Our Title VI plan provided.
That's what you said about the last.
Oh, the last one I said, if you thought that one. No, okay, so the Title VI plan provided in your packet is an updated plan for the 2025-2028 program period as required by the Washington State Department of Transportation. These plans are updated routinely over a 3-year interval. The plan has been reviewed by WASDOT and we have received concurrence from our community liaison. The update included a more robust description of outreach efforts and includes the training received by outreach and planning staff on best practice outreach under Title VI. We are asking the board to approve the attached plan update.
Is this, I'm sorry, is this this is a red line version of what changed, or is this the final version?
This is the final version.
So this, Title VI only covers the 3, see in the, what should we say? It covers race, and there are 3
National origin.
national origin and something.
Should know that.
So that's okay. So, but it doesn't cover, there's probably some other title that covers, you know, ableness or age, et cetera. Or not?
That's a little bit question, Craig. We should have,
It's just like, well, the ADA would be.
ADA is the separate
Separate, yeah, right.
program. Then you have DBE, which is disadvantaged business enterprise.
Okay.
Um, we should have the statement right in this Title VI.
It's in the executive summary. It's no person shall on the grounds of race, color, or national
Thank
identity be excluded from participation or denied the benefits.
Right.
And in the ADA law, which I cannot remember which title that is, but that's a different one, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and then when was the last time the agency here? Do we have one active now?
Yes, yes, and it would have been what, the 22 through 21 through 24.
We took action on it.
They're 3-year process.
This cannot have been with here.
Okay, that's all.
What section did you say was updated?
It included when WASDOT came back to us and asked us to provide more robust information on the actual outreach that we did, which I do have like a spreadsheet that shows the plan.
So,
Yeah.
so it's not this language that changed, it was an attachment?
Yes, they asked us to provide. So each of our outreach events. we go through the terms.
Yeah, what section is it? Okay.
Sections of exchange.
Section 9 says participation analysis.
That's what they're asking for now, is more they want. We have everywhere.
Melinda, do you want me to provide a couple bullets
Pardon
on
me?
this? We updated?
That-
Do you want me to
That's
provide?
great.
some-
Sure.
So, everyone has a
Mhm.
copy of the sheet in your
Yeah.
stack there. It shows the outreach from the last 3 years, and because we do a fiscal year, so it was, expires June 30th. 2025, and then it will go through, the new one. This one starts July 1, and then through 3 years until 28, June 30. We changed the complaint address from the Washington DC FTA headquarters, that civil rights office, to the regional, so here in Seattle. We fleshed out the language access plan, which is that's you'll see it in section 3, 4-factor analysis. We update the demographics, that change every year to find out if we are within the Department of Justice safe harbor, how many people we have who have limited
In the
English
census.
proficiency. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I said in the census tract, you're updating it with census tract
Right.
information.
Thank you. And that's it, essentially. Does
And
that
then
help?
they ask for a more robust outreach, and I can't even read that, it's so tiny. But it would be more helpful in the future, Commissioner St. Clair, if we provided a red line document? Yes. Okay. Can you make a note on that, please, Meg?
You wanna see
Yes.
the outreach document?
I would like to see it. These are identical.
The outreach is there. You have your, it's in a separate stapled
Yeah,
packet.
Yeah, we're passing it around, Meg.
Okay, you each have one, but okay.
Knowing that Meg Hefner worked on this, I'm ready to move forward.
I know very good.
It was not just me, it was Celine and Tony, and they were fabulous. And I really was glad to have them there, especially on the outreach, because they're already out there. Good planners. Thanks.
Celine, I only have one suggestion. And my suggestion is in the section foreign language access plan. And we, obviously we continue to have page 12. We use Google Translate on the website. Anyone who has engaged in translation services know how often Google Translate does things that you really do not want to see as a translation of your materials. So I would only ask that you periodically, when you're making changes to the website, bring in a Spanish speaker, because
I'm a Spanish speaker.
excellent. So there you go, because what happens is you put something in Google,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
know exactly where I'm going with this. So I just want to make sure we have an iterative process to double check with Google Translate.
Anything that goes on the website or goes out, has to go through me for Spanish translation, just so I make sure that the words are consistent with the words that are being used in our demographic region.
And the only population we must serve under Title VI is the Spanish speaking population, as it's over 5%. So that makes me feel better, because
And
I worked on Title VI stuff for the Health Benefits Exchange, and it was interesting.
And Commissioner St. Clair, we had additional languages that we needed to translate. We do have the services of the language line. Where we could definitely have them do interpretation for us.
Not to be persnickety, but when you're working with the language line, you're working with interpretive services. When you're translating written documents, those are translation services.
Right, that is true.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
I move to adopt resolution 1025, accepting Island Transit Title 6 non-discrimination plan 2025 through 2028 to be effective July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2020.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 1025, accepting the changes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Meg. I know you're there listening.
You're welcome.
The Meg.
The Meg, yes. All right, executive director reports. Oh, no, sorry, this is item number 4, excuse me. And that's ready.
Yes, we wanted to provide a timeline for the board to understand when the TDP and the budget will be occurring. So our transit development plan is already in the writing process. We should be presenting a draft to the board at the July meeting and then opening that up for public comment. And then at the August regular meeting, that is its final review. And there's also a public hearing that will need to be held specifically on the transit development plan. I have had individual meetings with the managers about capital projects. That information has gone to Paul, and financial plans are under development for our requirement to have a multi-year financial plan. This as I have stated to the leadership in our internal meetings, is the kickoff really for our budget process to get everybody thinking, because the transit development plan is required to be fiscally constrained for 2025 and 2026. It is a 6-year plan, and future years can be what is often called a parking lot for good ideas, but 2026 does have the requirement from the state to be fiscally constrained. And so that helps us get organized for the next budget year. And when the budget kicks off here in approximately August is when we'll start working. September. Okay. So then we should be completing the transit development plan in August. That is required to be submitted no later than September 1st to Washington State Department of Transportation. And that walks us right into the beginning of the budget process. So that is how our transit development plan will feed into our annual budget process.
And I will be working with staff as we go through our TDP process. This was something that I did at the city of Everett for about the last 10 years. I have introduced Brad, not that he didn't know, but we have specific guidelines by WSDOT. So the TDP will look different than it has in previous years because it will line up with exactly the categories and the requirements that WSDOT asks for in their TDP. So it's kind of like when you have an audit, you provide the auditors with specifically what they ask for because it's easy for them to go through and then assess that you've met all the criteria.
Should we in July have our prior TDP and the current one, so we have a side-by-side to remind ourselves?
We certainly can, but just understand it's going to be organized completely different and may not include several of the elements.
Will you identify the elements that are being eliminated or removed? I know it'll be
Make
difficult to do a red line
Yeah.
because they're gonna be different,
Sure.
but at least we'll have a framework to know how it existed and how it's gonna be.
Absolutely.
Future.
So you said that you're reaching out to the managers and they're giving you the capital projects that they want to do. And then you're giving those to Paul, and then Paul's developing a budget constrained TDP.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
that what you just described?
Yes, ma'am.
Where in that process is the board determining if those capital projects are board approved projects?
So the transit development plan is not a budget requirement. It is just a plan. It is not something on which we could base procurements or any spending. So it is a projection by the agency of what it would like to do in the next year. The actual approval would have to go through the budget process, and those capital projects would have to be approved in the budget process for there to be any funding attached. And that's where the board gets the thumbs up, thumbs down on projects.
I think her question, if I may, is when we talk fiscally constrained, it's like it's already approved. And that's what you're thinking. And what the TDP is gonna outline for 2026 would be grant funds already received for projects that are already in the budget. So the rest of it is just a projection of things we'd like to.
I mean, yes, and I hear what you're saying. I mean, some of this I'm clarifying to make sure we're speaking the same language, because I might be speaking in county speak, how our process is, and so, I guess what I get used to is, well, it's in the TDP, so we're obligated to do this in the budget. We didn't put that in the TDP, so we can't put that in the budget. So the TDP that becomes the thing that the board didn't approve is the controlling document for the thing that the board has to approve, because, well, you already made this decision, so you have to make this other one. I just wanted to get our decisions in the right sequence so that we didn't end up in a scenario where, well, we don't want to do this, but we already said we were going to do this because it's in the TDP. Or we really want to do this and we didn't put it in the TDP, so we can't. Right, so I wanted to make sure I understood where we were given the head nod, and you're saying we can do anything we want in the budget. This is just something we're sending to the state based on grant funds already received.
Yes, and it can include the other elements as well as a projection of what we'd like to do in the future. The TDP supports the STIP, the State Transportation Improvement Program. So when we, and I'm not certain how it's done here on the rural side, so I'm not gonna be able to speak to that very well. I'll figure that out as we go through the process. But for example, on the Everett side of the house, I would have to program things into the STIP and then use the TDP projections as the supporting document.
Got it.
And so I would say, and also, as one follow-up, one requirement for us is if we want to have a project grant funded, it has to be listed in the transit development plan. So that is a requirement for us. You know, every year as these things come up, we get 5339 bus and bus facility, you know, grant opportunities. The state's grant process, anything we want to apply for that has state or federal dollars attached needs to be in our transit development plan.
But it could be as generic as vehicle replacement and not have specifics to it. So I don't want to get too into the weeds there, because it's not like we couldn't go out and apply for a grant because it wasn't TDP. We were purchasing vehicles that were going to be the year of expenditure 18 months down the road. I have plenty of time to put that into next year's TDP.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
just to be clear on the budget piece of it, just to set some expectations. So, Paul, my understanding is that the template has gone out to all the managers.
That's not yet. I am, my piece of it is collecting 2024 actual data, actual, putting it into a template that is uniform across all departments. Hoping to have that done by Monday, get it up.
No, sorry, I misunderstood yesterday.
And
So,
have them then give their input, as to their needs, and hoping to turn around in about a week. And then I'll come back and then I'll have to use that information for non-wage data that's going to more of a bigger picture financial.
and Melinda, you and Paul will be meeting with the managers
Absolutely.
individually.
Absolutely.
And then when will we see kind of the first iteration? Because I think sometimes we get it, it's everything
You'll see it
there.
at the July meeting.
Okay, so July, and then we'll get feedback, and then it'll go back?
Correct.
Okay.
And we'll also, so you'll give feedback. It'll also be open for public comment for a month. So we'll incorporate public comment as well as board comments in the final draft to present to the office.
Okay. And somewhere in there, in these discussions, unspent or identified as potentially not spent from the 2025 budget will be,
I think that'd be
Identify.
part of your regular budget.
Okay.
process.
thank you, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
James.
Very much appreciate Commissioner Johnson's observation with regard to the TDP and how it's binding or not. And I have just an extension of that, is that if once a TDP is formed, does that make us open for lawsuits if we don't conform to the
No.
TDP that we had?
A TDP is an annual report and a transit development plan, a 6-year projection.
Okay.
An annual report, 6-year projection.
So there's always this idea that, you know, if an official body creates a plan, then if you don't go by the plan and somebody wants to do
Now,
something.
the Title VI plan that you just approved,
Yeah.
we have to abide. by.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if that, we have to abide by the Title VI, how are you gonna do public participation in a month in the TDP? Cause we just had to build a more robust outreach plan
Right.
under Title VI.
Well, you're doing it through their outreach that they're going to do. They'll advertise in the paper. It will be on our website. Those are the elements where you get the public process. We also are required to share it with neighboring agencies. There's an entire list of places that WASDOT outlines where we have to send the draft out for feedback to other agencies as well. Do you want to add anything?
We're also gonna be doing surveys, and we've already outlined our demographics and encapsulated them into different groups. So that way we make sure to reach out to those individual groups. And we're gonna be reaching out to the decision makers as well in those groups so that they can offer us their perspective on, so we have the kind of tiered level of outreach, so that way we get kind of a biased perspective from every group, and then we can take that and then we can formulate that kind of into one big. And we already have a lot of information that we've gathered over the last year, because we've purposefully gone out during the year to request information. And we have people coming in, we've added another layer of how to reach us through a community engagement email. And we get constant feedback from the public. We have a tracking system and in Excel, and we use all that data so that we can then, anytime there's a search change, anything it is, we try to incorporate that into that conversation. And then we go back to those people, especially if they're leaders of the community.
By email, just if you could, you know, put in board packet, but provide the board in July with your searchable public input that you've gotten to formulate this plan. I think that helps us in knowing what you're hearing. And then I just have some grassroots thoughts, such as making sure you reach out to the Action Club and stuff like that, which you've done in the past, because they're the transit dependent, most frequent riders in my community.
I have a question for Brad. Do you present to the TAC?
I have not in the past.
Because that's at the city of Everett, we presented to the TAC, the Transportation Advisory Committee. And that was where I received most of my feedback. Very little feedback from me under our plans came from the general public, but it definitely came from our TAC and our communities, so.
I have one more.
Yeah, transit does not take a talk to IRTPO track.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they present there. I think we probably should.
Yeah, good idea.
I'm sorry, Brad. That's
No,
the next
that's-
one.
I was in a meeting yesterday where the conversation was raised about access to healthcare and transit. And that was a regional conversation, but I would like to see us reach out to the healthcare providers to see if they're seeing any challenges in the population getting to maybe health or Skagit Health or wherever the healthcare providers, because that is one of the critical social drivers of health is access, and transit is the solution.
Attended that at my conference too.
Yeah, it was in a meeting I was at yesterday. That's me.
Thank you, Brian.
Oh, sorry.
When will this board approve? What board meeting?
The August policy. That's where the final draft will be
So
presented,
August,
whatever,
first Friday of August.
correct.
Wow. That will be earlier than ever.
I know. Yeah, it's due to the state September 1st. So typically you want to start your gathering process and data in May. So that you can hit.
I mean, in
all
the
those
past, we've, I mean, you know, we've requested an extension, and then last year we scheduled a special board meeting at the end of August, just specifically to give staff time. to-
Now, we should be well prepared to be able to provide it particular time.
Okay,
So
great.
there's no rush.
That is a significant change.
Good.
Thank you, Brad.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, executive director's report.
Fine. I've been doing a lot of talking. Okay, a few highlights. There were a couple of things. I was traveling, so there's a couple of things at the end that are not included that I'm gonna share with you. Let's start with staffing updates. Received 5 really strong candidates for the operations manager position from Karis Consulting, and we're gonna be meeting Terrence, myself, and Meg. We'll be meeting with them on Monday to evaluate these 5 top candidates. We've received approximately 13 candidates altogether, 5 of which bring robust transportation operations manager experience. I'm really excited. I'll be taking those home over the weekend, but I glanced at them while I was at my conference and really excited about what I saw there. We have our NeoGov, as you know, our online recruitment. We are currently recruiting for our capital project manager and the information technology position. Job descriptions are being uploaded to the site as they are updated, so that as we have positions to post, those can be done right away. In the coming months, at our board meetings, Terrence will be introducing our new merit-based performance evaluation process. I've spoken to you about this in previous board meetings. This appraisal process includes, written performance evaluations for our non-represented staff. Our evaluation periods will go from October 1 of each year through September 30 of each year, and will be based on a merit increase opportunity. And we will have, Terrence will be providing the scoring sheet. It's a new numerical evaluation. It was something that I used at the city of Everett, along with our compensation policies when I was on the compensation committee. And this new process will bring everyone in line. So when we do the October 1 through September 30, it allows the evaluation of that period, and then all increases would then go into effect on January 1 of the following year. So it gives plenty of time to evaluate.
So I got questions on that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a number of ways that people get increases and, so I'm assuming that you are gonna have some type, you're gonna continue to have some type of salary structure with ranges, and the range position will be reconsidered our ranges will be upgraded every year, and then people are moved in the range to fit in with,
Correct.
and will you consider that range shift part of a COLA?
That will be included just like it is in the wage grid now.
Okay, so that the COLA will be included in the range shift.
Yes.
And so everyone will be getting a COLA every year. And your intention is also to make people eligible for a merit increase every year.
So as it stands right now, we have the step program. So people are automatically getting these 1-step increases. Now it's going to be based on merit.
Okay,
So the opportunity will be if you are meeting expectations on performance, you're eligible for a 1-step increase. If you're an employee who is exceeding expectations or outstanding, then you have an opportunity for up to a 2-step increase. This is, we will provide all that. I'm just introducing the idea to you that this is what's coming. Terrence will be doing a presentation on it. It's all backed up by numerical rating systems so that it's not arbitrary by insurance. So the ratings have to correlate with a certain number that then give the equation or solution, if you will, to the amount of the increase.
We're gonna talk more about it.
Absolutely.
because if the COLA is 3% and the next step is 2%, we're looking at 5% increases every year.
I mean, it's, yeah, yes, and we have a thing where we can max out your merit increase at such and such a percent, and it is literally the expectation. And if someone doesn't get the max out amount, then you've got morale issues, and why am I not good enough? And so you just give them the high one because it's the path of least resistance to keep everybody in their bodies. And so and that's where I want to talk about, like, I hear what you're saying about the numerical. But if somebody gets it one step and somebody does, and somebody gets two step. And if somebody's not qualified to even get the one step, they should already be written up and on their way out the door. So the
Absolutely.
one should be automatic. But if they go into the break room and one got two and one got one, I'm just telling you, that's gonna be a problem. And so I wanna talk a little bit more
Sure.
about it, because otherwise the expectation is just gonna be everybody gets the two.
Yeah. It's in the way the system is set up, that's not an easy achievement.
Okay,
They have to exceed expectations in 10 different areas, which is typically not the case.
okay.
But I agree, we will talk a lot more.
Cause you don't wanna just put a morale problem on books,
Yeah,
right?
no,
I understand it's just a merit increase every year.
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just want to support Mr. Bacon and Johnson because of evaluation inflation. It's like grade inflation in school. I mean, it becomes an expectation, and then you got it not only that does not function, but it's not cost effective. So
You know what I noticed now, I came in November, I saw everyone get the next step increase with no evaluations. I was horrified.
Yeah, that's not good either.
Yeah, no, I'm
You know,
really
quite
glad that
honestly,
you
they got
evaluate.
that plus the
That's
COLA.
right.
And there were no evaluations to go along with that, so we're not even determining, this way, at least we have a scale where we're measuring performance before anybody gets an increase. And and I know we're not on the other side of the water, but it's pretty standard in the government sector. I don't know about Iowa County, but where you're getting not only a step based on merit, but COLA increases. Government was the only place I ever got a COLA. That was totally foreign to me until I came to the city.
Island County merits are, it's not every year. Merits are like every 2 or 3 years.
Interesting.
And we've not given COLAs some years.
And it's in our annual budget discussion, if we can't afford a COLA, we can't afford a COLA.
Well, and we've done that at the city as well. But we also, I think it's important to remember to, in evaluating employees fairly, is they also need to be able to support families. And when we have the budgets that can support that, they need to be rewarded for their jobs that they do. That said, I'm a critical grader. Sorry.
Paid for the jobs that they do, not
Yes.
rewarded for the job.
Correct.
Okay, we're not giving your pay salaries and a reward, it's payment for your time.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
That is true, yeah.
We have to move to term two.
Yes, sorry. One thing on here, the tree farm. We received the final appraisal in the amount of $340,000. I have the appraisal in a binder over there that you're welcome to look at. It's 240 pages. We can certainly send it to you by electronic link if you'd like to take a look. There's going to be a presentation provided at July's board meeting on the next steps with the would-be Camino Land Trust and its board and our extinguishment. So more to come on that. I just wanted to give an update. And the last 3 things I have, as you know, we talked about the grant application that we received permission to pursue for the bus and bus facilities grant. We will be needing a support letter for that we will be requesting Chair Bright to sign, but we'll also be coming to the exec board at the IRTPO to get a support letter from them as well. So I just kind of wanted to put that on your radar. Another thing, another thing that we received yesterday afternoon is we received a notice from WashDOT on 2 awards for our rideshare program. We requested monies for 14 replacement vehicles at $852,000, 880. We requested 243,000 for expansion. We were awarded for the replacement vehicles, which is excellent. So very happy about that. This will be for the 2025-2027 biennium and will be included in the TDP.
Yes, ma'am.
And the second was they had an opportunity to provide incentives to our van pool users. And we requested 19,000 and we received 10,000 for the same time period.
What
So,
new incentives?
they will publish that. I'm sorry, I don't have those in front of me. But Joanna, in their, application had provided a number of incentives that we can do. I know you're a van full user. We'll make sure we get those
Are
out.
those to attract more vans?
Correct.
They're not for
Yeah.
current users?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Okay, and lastly, we have our SAO audit is back on the table, so Paul's had his hands full this year. They're doing us a little early this year. We just closed out the previous annual audit in January.
Yeah.
And the new one begins on Monday, so. And that's all I have. Thank you.
What timeframe is that covering?
That covers 2024.
Should be interesting.
Any other questions for Melinda before we move on? Parents? Oh, there you go.
Are we ahead of schedule?
No, I'm sure we're not. We're not, we never are.
So this is our.
Our first Human Resources Manager monthly report.
So this is,
I'll control.
this is the first one, so please let me know exactly what you guys want to see in the future. This may not be in line with what you were looking for. Hopefully it is, but if it isn't, please let me know. Commissioner Johnson, nice to meet you.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so I wanted to start off today with a couple of highlights. I think Melinda touched on some of them already. Dave Malone successfully completed auditing from the DOL as a CDL examiner, so that's a good thing for us. We have 2 facilities hires that begin on the 9th, and 3 road support supervisors attended the TSI class on effectively managing transit emergencies and have received completion certificate. So those are all good things I wanted to start off with. So as of today, we currently have 47 out of 53 billeted operators combined between Camino and Whitby. With 2 currently in rideshare, which should bring it up even higher. Recently, we hired 6 operators that have graduated out of training and are now in service. And there'll be a class later this month on the 20th with 5 more qualified applicants that look pretty good. So if you guys are looking at this, you see it goes all the way back to January of 2024. But I think I really want to focus on May until May, that 12-month period, so I can give you a good turnover rate reason. But I'm sorry, I can't see.
That makes 2 of us.
January, if you look at the combined head count, we were at 58, combined between Camino and Whitby. And that was at our lowest point. So I wanted to address why was that at that lowest point? Melinda wasn't here yet. So I talked to the operators and I wanted to take a snapshot and get their perspective. So I talked to a bunch of operators. Why were we at 58 at that point? The common frame, mostly pay. And there was some internal strife with the organization by all accounts. But if you look at May forward, so I can get a good turnover rate count, it is pretty consistent once it leveled out. But from this period, from January until about April, it was pretty much all about pay. And Island Transit was going through a process right there. They were going through some tough times from what I've been able to glean from talking to everyone else. So if you look at this,
This will show you our new hires and exits. We had 2 in February prior to the period that I like to talk about, but from May, July, and October were our huge exit months.
Was that
So-
last year?
Yeah.
Yes.
So for 2024, we had 3 months that comprised of 66% of our exits. So we'll go into some context about that as well. So when you do the turnover rate, it looks like about 38% or so. But when we get into the context of why individuals left, it'll be a little more palatable.
Is this all, operators, is it operators?
Operators, I'm sorry.
Operators.
Operators, yes.
So I'd make a comment, it's one of the things I wrote down here. I would put the word operators or driver in the title,
Just
so that when
operator.
we're looking back
Just
on it
operator.
6 months from now. Or years from now, we'll know that we're talking about the the represented drivers.
No,
It's not dispatch or even.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we want to use the term operator.
got it.
Danny will be proud of us. You're welcome, Danny.
So if you look at,
Yes, I love it. Thank you.
if you look at,
I know you're watching.
if you look at the reasons why so many people left, 11 of them left because they did not pass orientation. So if you take those 11 out of the 18 that left, that takes that turnover rate from about 30% all the way down to 11%.
Yeah.
And the national average for turnover rate is right around 18%. And if you look at our numbers for Manning from that point on, it's pretty steady. So I don't know if it was really all about the money, because the money hasn't changed, but our numbers have. So we have to look into that and what we can do to keep those 11 drivers that have been leaving. Is this something that we're lacking in our training? That are not making these drivers able to complete the process, or
Terrence, I'm sorry, point of clarification, didn't make orientation. Can you explain the?
they didn't pass their CDL, they didn't pass the physical, or they got into the program and said, this is not what I wanted.
Okay.
This is not for me. So how do we go about in our selection process of getting the right people in that will complete the program or do something different in our training to address those individuals that are failing out? So those are things that we can look inwardly for to try to improve on. Next, please. Nope, go back. Did we skip one? It should be on highly engaged employee.
Celine, can you go back? Do you want me to do it?
Good. So if you go back to May and you look at those 12 months. One left for wages, one left for health concerns, and one was terminated for late shows. And we'll just start month to month. Where's May? Yeah. We'll start in May, so in May. One left for wages. One left for health concerns and one was terminated for late shows. In July, 2 were terminated, excuse me, for safety concerns, and there was 1 retirement. August saw a long-term retirement. I know Craig had wanted to know about, are we losing long-term individuals? We did lose someone in August, 21-year employee decided to retire. September did not make it through probation. October was 1 retirement and 2 did not pass their CDL. And in December, it was for retirement. So when you look at that contextual tapestry of it. No one's leaving because they hate Brad. No one's leaving because they hate their supervisor. No one's leaving because they hate Island Transit. The most common theme is they're either not passing, possibly on us, possibly something we can do, or money. And that's something that we can definitely, look
Wait,
into.
sorry, how do we get to money? I heard retirement and flunk
The
out.
wages prior to that, the exits prior to that.
Oh,
Yeah.
but what you just explained, the people, when you were going through, they either weren't, they were
Gotcha.
either dismissed, or they didn't get to their CDL, or they retired.
Gotcha.
Neither one of those are money.
That's from May on, but prior to that, it seemed to be money, and we'll get
Okay.
to some other reasons for 24.
I also want to point out, thank you for this, that it's a reiteration of what I keep saying, which is people didn't leave because suddenly the board was having to run the business.
I heard it was the interim HR.
Yeah, so this makes me feel good about what we had to go through last year. We never had a mass exodus of employees worried about the security of their job and of the agency because they had trust in the board that everything was gonna be fine.
Yeah, so when I talk to people, and that's why I had the one quote on the first slide about remembering things, people all had their own interpretation of why people were leaving. And I didn't have that institutional knowledge to be able to make that determination, so I started talking to people. And everyone said it was about money or not necessarily about strife. We should be on. Next, please. Client loyal is a client satisfied. All right, so let's look at 2025. We started 2025 with 63 combined, and we're seeming to be leveling out. But if we get the 2 in training on board, plus the 5, if they all make it through, we should be pretty close. And mid-year, we've been budgeted for up to 58. So if we can get to that point, we should be able to.
Sorry, it's 58 on Whitby and then
Yeah,
60.
58 on Whitby, yeah.
So what's the total number that?
It would be 74 would be the total number mid-year.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at March 67, we'd like it to be 74.
Yes.
Okay.
And if we can do that, we can cut into a lot of the overtime issues, a lot of the manning issues, and all of those different things that come along with being understaffed or overutilizing people and eliminating burnout and all of those good things. But that's what the numbers indicate right here. Next, please. So far in 25, we've had 3 employees that have left for more money elsewhere. 3 have moved out of state. 1 did not make it past probation. 1 allowed their license to expire on purpose, didn't want to renew it, and 1 left for personal reasons. So that's what our 25 is shaping up to look like. And that's why I refer to money, because in 25, that was going to be an issue. Next slide, please. Next slide. So, did we miss January? No, this is it. So in January, we had 2 leave for wages and 1 self-removed. They determined that they were not a fit. February was for a safety concern. April saw 1 leave for wages and 2 moved. 1 of those moves was for wages as well. May saw 1 mutual exit for safety concerns. They were about possibly be terminated anyway, and then they moved out of the country. And 1 did not pass training. So I thought it was important to provide some context of why people were leaving. So that when we look at our turnover rate numbers, we won't say it's all doom and gloom. Right now, it's right around 30%. But if you eliminate the 11 that did not even make it through, which still count towards your turnover rate, you get a better picture.
And you said we have about 6 people going through orientation this month.
Well, you have 2 in training now and 5 more starting on the 20th.
I
Yes,
would, in the future, separate those data points, because it's a different conversation between who doesn't come out of training successfully and employee retention.
well, I thought about doing that, but I didn't want to seem like I was being underhanded and hiding
Just
data.
show both.
Yeah.
Just show both,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
separate it.
Agreed.
Any questions?
Wow. For months, I've been asking for trend report, and this is fantastic. This is what the board needs to see. And I think if we had this long ago, we would have seen the problem, so we've been able to anticipate the problems. And, I think this will be there. I took a couple notes here and we don't need to go over them now in terms of tweaking. I would say one thing, to Commissioner Bacon's question. I'd suggest putting a vertical line, like what the budget is, like 74 apparently is the budget, put that up there.
Yeah.
And we can see if we get up there, or go above it maybe, so, I guess we can't go above it, but, anyway, that helps us understand where we are and the success of the entire program, the recruiting, so anyway.
I would do it.
Thank you, Terrence. I'm gonna move us along. I apologize, y'all, because I want to give Paul due time, but we do have some closed sessions and we've got a hard stop for you for Commissioner Bacon, and I want to be respectful of that.
Mr. Sinclair.
Sinclair, sorry, Sinclair, sorry,
It's the
Sinclair.
Okay, morning. I'll just get through this presentation quickly for you.
Pointed at the right
Financial
direction.
report was reviewed yesterday, actually. I'll start with cash sources, a tax revenue up about 65,000, 5.4% in April. Next slide, please. If we look at it relative to our budget, we're up about 2.8%, $35,000. You can see in the last 3 months, we've had positive budget activity above what we had budgeted. So that's really good. For the year, we're behind about 1.5% on sales tax. Next slide, please. No capital grant. Next slide, please. Or grant revenue, I should say. Investment interest and interest rates. Our investment interest, 160,000, was up a little over 2%, 35,000 from last month. We have 68 million invested. ICTIP has improved almost 5%, 13 basis points, where the LGIP is actually kind of flat. You can see the 2-year treasury and recently, which maybe doesn't even show up on this chart, interest rates have been edging up. Next slide, please. Cash uses. Our payroll expenses cash-wise, almost 1.4 million, which was up significantly, about 35% from last month. I investigated a little closer on an accrual basis we're about 1.1 million, up about $100,000 or 8.5% from the previous month on an accrual basis. And after further investigation, when we're comparing our March against April, March includes more hourly employees, an overlap period in February. February was a short month, we just had less days. There were also some other significant increases in training and overtime. We had 9 wage step increases, 3 promotions, and 3 more paid employees in April coming off of FMLA. Non-payroll payments, almost 400,000. Was up also about 100,000 from last month, and After reviewing, all of our purchases, there were a couple significant increases. We had 65,000 computer services, which was for security software, UPS battery replacement, and 56K for consulting. Next slide, please. Capital payments were pretty minimal. There was computer server purchase, almost 14,000, but relatively light again in April. Next slide, please. Cash reserves were slightly over 70 million, but our cash decreased a third of a million in April. We didn't receive any operating grants on a cash basis, but it decreased. Next slide, please. You can see it graphically, once again, it decreased about a third of a million in April, but we're still slightly above 70 million for the end of April. Next slide, please. Budget actual on the revenue side, target of third or 33.3%. You can see that the only area that's exceeded that has been interest. Interest rates have been rising. We're slightly behind on sales tax, 1.5%. On fares, a little over 3%. Fares meaning van pool fares. And our operating grants are behind. We're still waiting for reimbursements that were submitted for previous months to April. Next slide, please. Budget actual expense side, same target. You can see we're still ahead on insurance and subscriptions, which are often paid in advance. Insurance is paid January. Wages and benefits are in line slightly below that target. One area of movement has been utilities. We've dropped below our expectation where we were exceeding that in the first 3 months. So we're coming off of those winter months, less electricity bills probably. I think that's it. Any questions?
I just had an observation. I know you and I talked about this yesterday. In light of the data that you shared with us around the operators and persistency, I think it would be helpful for me anyway to understand at some point when we feel confident about the staffing from an operator perspective, when will we start to see a reduction in overtime? Because it still seems like we have high overtime charges or costs. And so at some point in the future, if we could kind of revisit that, that would be great.
By those APCs.
And I know all of those things go together, and I wasn't gonna say it out loud because Jill would throw something at me. But I just think that would be helpful for us to kind of look at that. If we continue on that trend, because that's business as usual for us, or if we're able to kind of level out, so.
Hopefully it should level out.
Okay.
In any organization, when you're staffed fully, it generally reduces overtime. But when you're in a union environment and you're reading the contract and it says mandatory or you're allowed so much overtime, it should definitely reduce it.
Okay.
I'll just take it.
To be continued.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah, Paul, thank you. So I appreciate seeing the transparency that we have today with getting our voucher list and the visa report. It's something I see in other boards, so thank you for that. We had a concern in the past about travel, that we weren't given the information to monitor. So I looked at that and it was, there's a lot of travel and training. Do we, in the line item of our consolidated reports is training and meetings? Does that line item incorporate T&E travel and expenses, or is that just the training and meeting cost? Where is the T&E cost shown in our?
I think it is under that one category. These are, this is, extensively summarized. If we were to look, and we did this in the finance committee, we just kind of looked at our financial statements coming right out the system.
Yeah.
Things are much more broken out, defined. But yeah, I think that category does include all that training and travel associated with
Because
it.
it's well below the 33%.
It's true.
So that's fine. It's just, I always look for high dollar and variance. That's the two things I look at in budget. Thanks.
And we are going to be implementing a new travel policy as far as authorizations go, and on those authorization forms, the budget will be tied to it, and it'll come to the executive director for approval.
Yeah.
So that we make sure we're staying.
I didn't have any concerns, I just appreciate the transparency, I wanted to make sure I was putting the things in the right boxes.
So for the new guy, high dollar and variance is a good. It's his, it's beautiful.
I have always looked at variance, what is the huge
Right.
variance on what's budgeted, and then where is this outlier of 160,000 for lunch?
Darkies.
Yeah.
Commissioner Bacon.
So I'm being really picky here. So, on the consent agenda, we approved the June twenty twenty-five vouchers. I'm assuming that where it says voucher May 2025, that's the June 2025. Probably it should say the same one.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Oh, you already.
Craig already did
Thank you,
that.
Yeah.
thank you.
Craig
Good, good catch. though.
Craig had to-
Craig had you.
Thanks.
Okay, we are now gonna go into a closed session followed by an executive session. So for those in the room that are not party to that, I would invite
Thank
you
you for your.
Danny, if you would, we're gonna put you, if you so choose, into the waiting room for the closed session and bring you back for the executive session, if you're good with that.
Great, thank you.
Thank
How long do
you.
we need?
You tell me.
How long do we need? 5 minutes?
Good morning.
5 minutes. Okay. And then do we need to back up the closed session?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Take the cake. I mean,
Leave as soon as I can.
So the closed session will be about 5 minutes and we're gonna start in about 3 minutes.
these are birthday cookies.
Okay. I can't hear you. Hold on 1 second, please. I think you're gonna have to unmute, because I can't do it from here.
Okay. Okay. All right, we are back from our closed session. We're gonna be going back into an executive session to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or member acting in any official capacity is or likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. RCW 42.30.1101I. And would invite Danny to be with us, and Joe.
And for
10 minutes to start.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
I'm gonna do a quick intro.
No.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Okay. We have decided our, oh, she's bringing everybody in. Yes. Maybe that's me.
I like your snazzy glasses and your shoes.
Thank
Your
you.
shoes are adorable.
I want to make one more comment, sorry, but I do.
Oh, okay.
We've just,
All are in.
okay, thank you, Meg. We've just come back from executive session. No action is to be taken. Any comments from the board?
Yes, I just wanted to thank staff for the very productive work session. And I do want to note that all of the dishes and utensils were compostable. And that was, I think, quite good. But in the organizational development side, I think we really came together as a board.
That was great.
Yeah.
Great, yeah.
That's good.
That's good. Okay,
Great.
thank you, everybody who joined us here and joined us online. We will adjourn.
Thank you, Jen.
Bye, Danny.